Welcome to Ideagen TV. Today, I am honored to have with us Nick Larigakis, President and CEO of the American Hellenic Institute. Nick, welcome.
George, it's a pleasure to be with you and good to see you again.
Nick, it's always a pleasure, and I know that you're at the fore. You're right at that edge of conversations around the Mediterranean, Eastern Mediterranean, Greece, and that whole region that's so incredibly important for so many reasons. And I'd like to ask first, at the American Hellenic Institute in 2023, what is your primary mission?
Well, in 2023, obviously, our primary mission continues to be our primary mission, and that is, to keep advocating and promoting for U.S. interests regarding the Eastern Mediterranean, which involves Greece and Cyprus, and to explain to policymakers as to why both these countries are provided for the national security interests of the United States by, first and foremost, creating the proper peace and stability for the region, countries that are Western-oriented, democratic, and share the same values of the United States. But unfortunately, within the same vein, you also have to talk about the problems that Turkey causes in the region as it relates to the instability of the region. So it's within that context that we continue to promote the policies in the Eastern Mediterranean, advocate, bring awareness to the players and who's doing what, in assisting Western interests and U.S. interests, and unfortunately, who's doing the opposite. And of course, within that context, we also bring up the very strong relationship that continues to be strong and continues to grow between Greece, Israel, and Cyprus, which is critically important to the overall promotion of that peace and stability in the Eastern Mediterranean for the projection of U.S. interest and, of course, Western allied interests.
So in terms of American interests and Greek interests, how do these differ? How do you prioritize the two, Nick?
Well, the good thing is that you don't have to prioritize the two. They really overlap, coincide, whatever term you want to use. The United States, like I said, has extremely important, interest in the area because this is an area where it's a nexus where East meets West, North meets South, and right in the middle of this area is the country of Greece. So you have major commerce, trade, shipping, energy that traverse the region. These are important not only for Greece, obviously, for its own self-benefit in its own interest, but it's also for the interest of the United States in this part of the world and for, like I said, Western alliance interest. So the interests align. And what's very important, as we know, relations between countries, usually fall within the boundaries of interests. Every country is going to promote what its interests are. And Greece and the United States are no different in that regard. But I said it earlier, and I want to underscore it once again. The relationship between Greece and the United States is strong and continues to be strong because not only the interests coincide, but also they have the same values. And that's critically important as well. And the United States cannot say they have the same values as other friends and or allies around the world.
That's just incredible perspective, Nick. And so I'd like to ask you then, you've had so much success for so many years at the American Hellenic Institute, talking about such critically important issues. And I'd like to ask you, I know it's hard, but what is one recent success that you can point to and say, that's what I do, Well, that's why I love what I do.
That's it's a very good question, and it's one that sometimes you can't put directly your pulse to it. But I would say ultimately, it's the ongoing 49 years of this organization. Next year, we're going to be celebrating our 50-year anniversary, which is no small thing to be able to maintain an organization that's this small with such limited resources, but to be so active and to continue to provide, for a mission that started in 74, but is still as viable and important today, and has frankly even increased in terms of its scope, its mission, and its objective. So next year we're celebrating our 50-year anniversary, And hell, there are countries that haven't survived for 50 years. So that in itself, of course, is a major success in the longevity of the organization, and how, of course, it is viewed in terms of its mission, its credibility to that mission, and to its outreach. So that is certainly one area. But, on a more substantive basis, again, being here to be the watchdog, to constantly be in contact with U.S. policymakers, and to continue to make them aware regarding the issues that involve the Eastern Mediterranean and how critically important Greece and Cyprus are to those objectives. Because as you well know, George, there are still a lot of individuals on Capitol Hill that are just strictly not aware about these foreign policy issues. And for us, that is where we focus the most. State Department, obviously, is another area, but they understand the issues in terms of those who work in the South European desk division, White House and Department of Defense. But in our form of government, the Congress is an equal partner in foreign policy. But yet there are 535 of them up there, and not all of them are certainly on the same page as it relates to the issues. It really can't be, and necessarily it's impossible to be on top of everything, which is why we have an important role of continuously being able to educate members of Congress on these issues, but frankly also our own Greek American community, because these issues are not stagnant. They may be stagnant in the sense that Cyprus is still occupied and divided 49 years later, but issues change. They are fluid, and you got to be on top of them, constantly. Energy today is a major issue regarding the Eastern Mediterranean, and that wasn't the case, 49 years ago, or maybe even 15 years ago. So you got to be constantly up to date on what are the main key issues in the region, and to make people aware of them.
That's absolutely incredible to hear, Nick. And so, in terms of what you alluded to earlier, this alignment between the United States and Greece, what aligns? There's so much, but what aligns Greece and the United States so well as partners and allies?
Well, for one, it certainly goes back over 250 years almost 250 years in a couple of years, when this great republic of ours was founded, and the founders of this country based the governance of this country on the values and the principles of democracy of ancient Greece. So our Constitution is steeped in that ideology, and even our architecture in the city that we live here in Washington, D.C. So it certainly goes back, to that. It goes back to the point where, for the United States and Greece has never been on opposite sides in the 20th and 21st century regarding any conflict around the world. Only one of only four countries ever to be so aligned. And of course, today, Greece, as I said earlier, is the vanguard regarding the eastern outmost border of the European Union, and of course is a member of NATO along with Turkey. But because of the unfortunate situation we have in recent years with Mr. Erdogan in Turkey, and its duplicitous nature regarding its cozying up with Iran, its support of Hamas, its obviously support of Mr. Putin, and kind of blows with the wind in terms of what it feels its own self-interests are, which do not always align with the geostrategic interests of the West or of the United States. But Greece does. Greece understands it's part of a NATO, part of an alliance called NATO, and they have an obligation within that context of that alliance. So Greece is a very faithful and loyal and geostrategically strategic important ally to the United States, and does not always promote issues regarding the Eastern Mediterranean or that of the United States in a quid pro quo fashion. And right now, Greece, regarding the Ukraine war that we are all aware of, Greece was one of the first countries to come out and condemn this. It was one of the first countries to call for sanctions. By contrast, to this day, Turkey, a NATO ally, still has not done that and has benefited from both sides, if you will. Alexandroupolis, the northeast city in Greece, is a major staging area for logistics and all sorts of assets that are flowing into Ukraine today and throughout Eastern Europe, and is going to play a bigger role regarding energy transport for the region, regarding how we view today looking to change the keep Russia at bay regarding energy in the future, and specifically right now. So Greece is a major alternative area for a transient country for energy to flow through to Western Europe. There's all sorts of plans for possible pipelines, but even today, Greece is a major transient country as it relates to energy, and also its asset is increasing regarding the potential for liquefied natural gas to be increased through various areas of Greece where this can come through as transient points. United States today has as many as 8 military assets, and as many as 8 facilities throughout Greece, mostly on a rotational basis. Suda Bay, of course, is on a permanent basis, and is one of the most important facilities for U.S. geostrategic interest in for naval operations in the Mediterranean Sea, and they've looking to upgrade those facilities. Money has been invested to try to do that. And right now, the U.S.-Greek relationship continues to grow at different levels. And certainly on the defense side, it's increasingly it is growing and looking to to go even further in terms of other areas of cooperation.
Nick, that's a lot of work that you're involved in, and certainly you're an expert. Having done this for so many years at the American Hellenic Institute, and certainly these issues are geopolitically critical. The world's in a precarious place in so many areas. You mentioned energy. It's really enlightening to hear what's happening on the energy front in Greece and Cyprus and, in that region. So phenomenal. I'd like to shift a bit and ask you about your specific journey, your personal journey, and how did you originally become involved with AHI?
Well, I got involved in AHI now 36 years ago, believe it or not. I started here August 1 of 1987. My background was in foreign policy, international relations. I always had an interest in that, and of course a more acute interest specifically in the U.S.-Greek relationship. And so when I learned of this organization, when I moved to Washington, back in '83, around '87, I met somebody from the organization. I gave him my resume, and the rest is history, as they say. But for me, it's not been a job. This is more than a job. This is something I'm very passionate about. I believe in this, very deeply. I don't think I could be here as long as I have or do the job that I've done for all these years if I didn't believe in it in terms of the passion and how important it is regarding the two countries, which are for me, just something that I'm so proud of, that I've been able to lend whatever the small degree I've been able to do to create a better situation and a better relation between the two countries. And I would be remiss, even in our earlier discussion, very key important regarding the continuing strengthening of the U.S.-Greek relationship is the people-to-people ties. Even U.S. government officials will tell you this, that how important it is that that the contact that exists between Greek Americans like myself and other organizations. Obviously, it's not just AHI that continue to have this people-to-people contact with Greece and the United States reciprocally, but obviously with elements of the U.S. government, including the embassy in Athens, which has been exceptionally important to have its doors open for organizations like us and others to come and to have visits with the ambassadors there and other personnel at the embassy. So just wanted to add that to the equation. But like I said, for me, it's been one hell of a ride. I will see where ultimately it continues to take me as I view my exit strategy down the road here in the not too far distant future. But I always will be involved in some capacity. And I really believe, like I said, very strongly, in the work of the institute, because I believe very strongly in the importance of the U.S.-Greek relationship, and I just like to be able to facilitate it to the best of my abilities.
Well, I don't know that that was a retirement announcement, because I don't know that you're ever going to retire. I don't think that's ever going to happen, Nick, knowing your energy.
No, but, George, here's the thing, though, and here's the thing, regarding Gene Rosides, which my mentor, somebody, who was very well known in regarding the Greek American community, maybe one of the most unique personalities within the Greek American community. He founded this organization, of course, in '74, but he also understood, that we all have an expiration date, and I believe in that as well. And not that I'm announcing a retirement or saying my expiration date is coming up anytime soon, okay? But the bottom line is we all do, and we all need to be aware of that. And he understood that, and he allowed me, to be able to exercise my wings, if you will. He allowed me to fail, because you can't succeed if you don't fail, okay? Uh, but he felt that, hey, you got to do it on your own, okay? I'll be here behind you if you need me as a safety net of sorts. But he understood that he needed at one point to take the back seat and allow somebody else, to move forward with the organization, because that's the only way organizations and and everything in life, there's a continuation of a process, and we have to feel secure enough in ourselves to allow for others to be able to give them the confidence, if you will, to go out and to move in that direction, as I am doing right now, and making sure that we have the kind of leadership here at the Institute that can continue way past me. Because it's not about any one person or anything else. It's about the concept of the whole organization, the importance of the organization, and it's never about just one person. Okay, I'm just a link in the chain of progression. There was before me, I was here now, and there has to be others after me if this organization is going to continue to be here, and it will be here.
That's incredible. It's such great advice, to really prepare and build and take an organization to a point where it can be a continual process, if you may, not based on the individual, but based on the mission. And that's really what you're saying, right?
Absolutely.
And so you have a really exciting project. It takes college students on a foreign policy trip. Can you tell us a little bit about that, the importance of it, and how folks can get involved in that program?
Well, again, that's part of the chain link fence. I learned many years ago in my travels and in my interactions within the Greek American community that unfortunately these issues that we deal with at the organization regarding the Eastern Mediterranean, for whatever reason, are not sexy enough for the general Greek American public. It's always a challenge to get Greek Americans to be invested, interested, and to finance, frankly, to become members and supporters of a mission of this nature. And none so more so was this, acutely, brought to my attention than in viewing the young Greek Americans, of our country. So the program I started was specifically with the intent to educate the next generation of Greek Americans and to make them leaders by understanding these issues and why they're important, and for them to move it forward in their capacities and to create, ambassadors, if you will, on these issues. So the program is very focused specifically on the issues of the Eastern Mediterranean and the interaction on U.S. foreign policy on the region. So it's a 17-day odyssey. We start off in Washington for a couple of days, where we have briefings, State Department, Capitol Hill, the embassies, other think tankers that we bring in, and have them speak to the students. And then from there, we go to the Cyprus, where we have 5 days there to learn about, the issue as it relates to Cyprus, and specifically, of course, the so-called Cyprus issue of the continuing occupation and the division of the country, but other elements of Cyprus today. Cyprus is not the of 1974. It's not the same Cyprus. They're involved in so many different other areas. But the occupation, the division is still important. And I take them to the occupied area, obviously, so they can see that for themselves. You can't teach that out of the book. You can talk about it, you can read it in the book, but until you physically see it for yourself, it's sometimes difficult, to comprehend and to understand. And then from there, we go to Greece for about another 6 to 7 days. And there it's all about Greece. And it's heavy on the defense side. We go down to Suda Bay for the day to show the importance of the military facilities at Suda Bay. We get defense policy briefings from the Greek Pentagon at the top level, from the general of the Joint Chief of Staff. Sometimes the Minister of Defense will be there. But the bottom line is we meet with people who are policymakers, decision makers. We've met with ministers, we met with the presidents, we've met with prime ministers, and others at the highest of levels. And these students have gotten exposed to something that, frankly, if they themselves were not ministers or presidents, they would have a hard time really having access to. So we're able to provide all of this, and they all leave there changed individuals. A lot of them have refocused their careers or now have thought about it in a different way. Many of them have worked for us for a couple of years at the Institute, and then they move on. But like I said, we've changed lives and we've changed opinions regarding how Greece and Cyprus are, other than just a vacation destination. But these are countries that are very important to national security interests of Western Alliance and to the United States. And so we want them to continue to give back and to promote that within their communities, their academic institutions, their friends, their families, and to be ambassadors of the American Hellenic Institute and these issues when they come back.
Nick, I've got to tell you, this is incredibly inspiring for so many different reasons. You are providing central interest on American interests. Everything you do is through that prism of American global interests. And you're helping young students also. It's incredible. Get a behind the scenes view of what happens in this geopolitical world, right? That they can't, to your point, often get from just reading textbooks. That practical experience is incredible. And you have potential future advocates for American interests when looking at Greece and other areas of the world, especially the Eastern Med. So I'd like to close this interview, sadly, because I know you could have a lot more insight and perspectives that are so valuable. But Nick, what is your call to action for our global audience, and how can folks find out more about your incredible work at the American Hellenic Institute?
Well, first of all, they can go obviously to our website, ahiworld.org. And I do want to remind everybody that next year we are going to be hosting our 50th anniversary of our organization. And we're planning a number of activities around the 50th anniversary. So look out for those events, and hopefully you can some of your listeners can certainly come and attend those events. But in terms of call to action, those who are interested in these issues, and if you're Greek American, you certainly should be interested on the issues facing the Eastern Mediterranean and the U.S.-Greek relationship, because make no mistake about it, while Greece is a strong country economically, politically, and I would also add militarily as well. I put Greece at a very high standard of military operational preparedness, second to none, within the context of the Balkans. They spend a tremendous amount of money, by percentage the highest in NATO, even higher than the United States by percentage. So these are things that are important for Greek Americans and those to understand that Greece is not just a vacation destination. It is that and more, and it's a great place to go and to vacation and to have a good time. But it is also a purveyor today, of security, stability, providing for peace for that security by virtue of its ideology, its values, and its commitment to the Western Alliance and to U.S. interests, and of course, goes without saying, its own national interests as well. But these are changing all the time. There is duress. There are provocative actions regarding Greece, and we all need to be aware of them as they manifest themselves and how they manifest themselves potentially down the road, because we need advocates to be constantly on the lookout, to be aware of these issues and to properly address them in time of concern. And frankly, you don't want to react to a crisis. You want to be able to prevent a crisis, and knowledge and advocacy and understanding the issues get you to there before you have to act on a crisis.
Nick Larigakis, President and CEO of the American Hellenic Institute, global leader, luminary, and friend. Thank you so very much.
George, I thank you, and I congratulate you and the entire team of Ideagen, and I certainly wish you good luck with all the deliberations on the lovely island of Corfu. It's always a pleasure to be with you, and I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you.